Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to the Sean Inspires podcast. I am excited. This is the final show for 2021, and I have an amazing guest on today by the name of Bill Flynn. Flynn, we are so glad to have you joining and sharing with us today at the Sean Inspires podcast. So I'm going to start by reading your bio and giving the audience a little bit of background information about you. So we have Bill Flynn. He's collaborated with Alan Mulally, pitched Steve Jobs, accomplished much, failed often, and learned many useful lessons from 30 years of studying the science of success. He is best described as a pragmatic Simon Sinek, an optimist and an operator. He has worked for and advised hundreds of companies, including startups, where he has had a long track record of success spanning from multiple industries. Bill has been a VP of sales 8 times, twice a CMO, and once a GM of a division of a 100 multi-million IT services company before he pivoted to becoming a business growth coach in 2015. Prior to, he had 5 successful outcomes, 2 IPOs, and 7 acquisitions, including a turnaround during the 2008 financial crisis. As a coach, in addition to being connected with MG 100, Women's Business Collaborative, Small Giants, and E4All, Bill has earned certifications from Scaling Up, Gravitas Impact, Metronome United, Predictive Index, and Neural Leadership Institute. Bill was also nominated for the 2021 Thinkers 50 Radar Award. Bill's best-selling book, Further Faster, The Vital Few Steps That Take the Guesswork Out of Growth, continues to garner a nearly 5-star rating, generating a demand for virtual and in-person national and international speaking opportunities. Bill, that's an amazing and impressive bio here. So, in your own words, please share with the audience just a little snippet about who you are.
Yeah, thanks for reading that, Sean. It's a lot. Clearly I've done a lot of things, which means I've made a lot of mistakes, and hopefully that has made me a wiser person. But yeah, I've basically my arc of my career has been, I did startups for a really long time. Really loved doing that. It was a lot of fun. I did 10 over those 25 years or so, and primarily I'm a business coach, which means I'm more of a teacher. I teach my clients a framework of how to grow in a healthy and thriving way. So that's sort of my main gig.
Awesome, awesome. So we're going to just get right into it. I'm excited for you to share today with the audience. So let's talk about, how did you pivot from leadership over into, which is still leadership, business coaching. So how did you make that pivot from one dynamic into another dynamic of business operation?
Sure. I think a couple of things happened. One is, I did, after the 10th startup, I asked myself, do I want to do an 11th? And the answer was yes, but it was getting harder and harder to find a CEO that didn't have something called founderitis, which is they basically fall in love with their idea and not the problem. And I couldn't convince them well enough to focus on really understanding why the customer buys from them, and are they really solving a problem worth solving. And I had an experience between startup 5 and 6 where I basically became a coach. I had to, because I was thrown into a very difficult situation of which I had no background and experience. And I had to tell my team, look, I don't really know how to tell you what to do. Most of the folks that reported to me, I had no background in. There's a lot of technical stuff, running a network infrastructure, running customer support, some finance things, which I really had no background in. So I said, look, let's talk about the vision, right? Where are we going to end up? How do we get out of this crisis that we're in? What will it look like when we're out of it? And then each of us can draw our own map from where we are today to what each of us needs to do to get us there. And I said, we're just going to help each other, and we're going to support each other through that. And I asked a ton of questions more than gave any answers. So that's sort of how I did that. And the net of it is that process worked phenomenally well. I gave my team had a ton of autonomy and support for each other. If you read my LinkedIn bio, you can see all the stats on how we did and what we did in terms of growing the business. And we doubled it in almost 2 years. We increased customer satisfaction tremendously. There's a lot of really great numbers. But the best part was the day I left to go do I think that would be the sixth or seventh startup, two of the guys that I had been working with came to me and really pretty much said the same thing to me, which was, I just want you to know that that thing you made me do, drawing that roadmap from where we are today to where my group needs to be in the future. They said, I hated it. It was really, really hard, but I'm so glad that you made me do it because now I know how to do that. Sort of a teaching someone how to fish type of thing. So, so I wanted more of that. I sort of tucked that away. I did 4 more startups after that, but I tucked that away and I said, I want to try to figure out how to do more of that. And that's how I became a coach. I looked into a bunch of business operating systems and coaching frameworks and found one that I really liked, which was the scaling up thing that you read. And I'm no longer doing that as a member, but I use it as a foundational framework for what I do for my clients today. So that's the longer story of how I got there.
Absolutely. I thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about your new book, Further Faster. And I think this is perfect timing for the book, for the release of it, of all that we've experienced as leaders. Companies across the globe have gone through so many shifts since the surfacing of COVID. So let's just dig into that a little bit. What was your inspiration for writing Further Faster?
So I'm a huge fan of first principles, which are those fundamental things that make things happen. Elon Musk is also a huge fan of first principles. There are a number of folks that are that. Many people ask me, what does that mean? An example is the Pareto principle or the law of the vital few, which most of us know is the 80-20 rule. That applies across so many things in our lives, from the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the friends you have, wealth distribution, all sorts of things really fall into that. And business falls into that as well. Most of your business profits come from a very small percentage of your customers. And what I wanted to teach folks was that there are so many things that you can do to grow your business and make it healthy and thriving, but there are just a few that make the biggest difference. And so I took that because there are so many business books out there. I'm sure you've read tons of them, and they pretty much all say the same thing. And it's based upon really just a handful of people. And we keep regurgitating the same things over and over again. There's not a lot of new things over the last 100 years of management science. And these are people like Peter Drucker and Edward Deming and Schein and Edgar Schein and Amy Edmondson and a few others that really have taken a really hard look at things and shared that with us. So I didn't want to write another business book that everyone else has written. It's nice to have a calling card or a marketing thing as a book, but I really wanted to try to help people. So I wrote a do-it-yourself book, a DIY book, based upon those principles. If you've read my book or have my book, you can go to my website, and there are 25 exercises that go with the book. You sort of read along and do them yourself. It's not everything you need to do, but it is a huge leap forward if you do those things and do them relatively well. So that was sort of why I did it, and that's hopefully what it does for folks. So it's not a huge bestseller or anything. It was early on, but there are about 1,000 people or so that have picked up the book over the last couple of years. So it's nice.
And you talked about specifically the CEO must fire himself from the day-to-day operation. Let's talk about and unpack that. Why is that? And what is it that they should go about doing when they shift from that day-to-day operation?
Yeah, that's great. It's really the essence of what I do with folks. So it's good for you for picking that out. That's really important. If you're going to grow a business, and there is really kind of 3 types of big categories of businesses. There are startups, which a lot of us, understand. And startups to me are really just a company that isn't a company yet. They're trying to figure out if there can be a company. There's a great definition of startup from this guy named Steve Blank, which is a startup is a temporary organization that is in search of a business model. And once you found a business model, then you can become a scale up where you're trying to grow. And you can try to grow as big as you possibly can, like massive billion-dollar companies. You can be what's called a small giant, but you're really trying to grow in a healthy way. And then the other is a lifestyle business where you're kind of just running the business and it's paying your bills and doing some other things, allowing you to do certain things, but you're not really looking to grow continually. You're just looking to maintain profit. So this is really for that group of folks, that small giants, the people who want to continually grow. as a business. And if you want to do that, that is really an act of creation or prediction of the future. And if you're going to predict the future, you have to get insight. And insight only comes when your brain is quiet. So I ask this of a lot of folks, so I'll ask the same of you, Sean. When you get your best ideas, what are you doing?
My best ideas normally, I'm going to give away two of my nuggets, is in meditation, and the other one is working out.
Okay, sure. So meditation is a perfect example. That's when your brain is quiet. You're not really doing anything. A lot of people say in the shower or going for a run or whatever. Working out. I work out too, and I don't really think a lot when I'm working out because it's sort of the same kind of things. I might have to count, but you're not really focusing your energies. You can be thinking about other things. So that's what you need to do as a leader, because if you're going to grow your company in a healthy and thriving way, you need to give yourself your brain time to relax and get those insights of those new ideas that hopefully will come in and allow you to grow your business in a better way. And you can't do that when you're doing, and most business leaders are doing. For a long time, I was a Vistage speaker for about 3 or 4 years. So I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of CEOs of companies from a few million in size to hundreds of millions in size, even over $1 billion. And I would always ask them that question: what percentage of the time do you spend in the business versus on the business? And invariably, it was 80 to 90% of the time in the business, doing, right, in meetings or actively working the business, operating the business, versus on the business where you're thinking about the business and the people in the business and your customers and how you can make their lives better and such. And I said, you have to flip that to be really 20% or so in the business, because you have to have meetings and you have to do certain things, to 80% on the business. You should be spending most of your time as the leader and the leadership team, as much as you can, thinking about the business as a whole, the business as a product, right? Think about, you're no longer selling the product that you have. You think of your business as the product to sell. And if you were to want to sell it and have the greatest value of that product, you have to make it as healthy and independent of you as possible, because you're the biggest reason why most valuations of companies are smaller than they could be, because you're not redundant. Those people who have sold their businesses, they get something called a golden handcuff, where they have to stay for a while because the owners of the new owners of the business are afraid that you haven't told them everything, because it's just something you do. So they want you to stick around for at least a year, sometimes 2 years, to make sure that any situation that could come up, they can learn from what you did. And when you make yourself independent of the business, when you make yourself redundant in the business, it actually has a higher valuation for the business. In order to do that, you must fire yourself from the day to day as much as possible and as quickly as possible. Because your job is no longer running the business. It is really predicting the future, which again is a creation event or an insight event.
Absolutely. I love that. And that itself is amazing insight and wisdom from you, Bill. So we have a upsurging, I would like to say, now since COVID, of a lot of new entrepreneurs coming on the scene. And I love the way that you broke down scale up startups and the different areas of businesses. So what would you say the new leaders, the new entrepreneurs should be on the lookout for as they unlock the doors, whether it's virtually, physically, into starting the new business as we move into the second year of this new decade?
Sure. And it's the same thing I would tell you whether we were in COVID or anything else, which is the businesses that do the best do one thing really well, is they find, actually do two things really well. They find a problem worth solving. And they solve it in a way that people will actually see value in it and pay them for it. Most businesses start from scratch due to a struggle that either they had or someone close to them had. And they say, I can do that better, or there must be a better way to do that thing. And they sort of search for that. Where they start to fall down is they don't test that idea. They try to confirm that they are correct. They have a hypothesis, and then they try to go out and look for people who say, yeah, that's a great idea. You should do that. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to actually try to prove that you're wrong.